Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, the Boston Celtics organization. What the fuck? All right, cue the intro. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Sideline NBA Edition. We're here every Wednesday at noon, break down, discuss the current state of the NBA. I'm your host, Matt Sampson. Before we get going, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. And today I have a special guest. I have Sam Reed back in studio. Sam, what's going on?
Matt, it's great to be back, my friend.
Sam, last time I saw you, we were at Richardson's. You got the peanut butter Oreo ice cream. How was it?
It was delicious. I'd say it's the second best this year.
Okay, what was the best?
S'mores.
Okay,
It's got to be s'mores.
That peanut butter Oreo, RJ couldn't have that. Or if he had that, he'd die, which would be bad. But then we could take over, move him up. So good and bad things, with everything, right?
Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with that. All right, let's get into the NBA now. Sam, the state of the league, well, last night was terrible. Last night was one of the worst displays of basketball I've ever seen. I mean, quite frankly, it was a disgrace. We were bamboozled. We were hoodwinked. Sam, we were led astray by the Boston Celtics. I feel taken advantage of. I feel, violated. I mean, last night was a joke. They were down 3-0, Sam, to the 8th seed, Miami Heat. They claw all the way back. Derek White has one of the biggest moments in NBA history, you could say. Buzzer beater when they were losing to keep them alive in the series. Game 7 at home, they bring Paul Pierce out, Rondo, David Ortiz does the intro, all the build-up. They lay an egg, get blown out of their own building. Celtics, this team chokes again. Sam, what are your overall takeaways from last night's loss?
Well, Matt, I did tune in a little bit last night to watch the game, and
night.
I will say, so from the get-go, they looked good. They went up 9-4.
They did.
But then besides that, I think the closest they were in this game was 7.
Okay.
And they just looked terrible. They were taking a lot of bad shots. They were living and dying by the 3. And since they weren't hitting, they weren't really trying hard on both ends of the floor. Yeah. And Miami simply took advantage of it. It wasn't necessarily Jimmy Butler that was controlling this game. I would say it was more Caleb Martin and the other guys that were on this Heat team that took over and had their way with the Celtics.
They did have their way with the Celtics. You're right, dude. Caleb Martin, I think, was the most valuable player for the Heat this series. He was, because Butler would have a good game, he had a bad game. Caleb Martin consistently, through all 7 games, played very well, both ends of the floor, and he was efficient. You know what I mean? He took good shots. He was an X factor for them. And I mean, I think a lot of people made this point going into the game. Barkley made it, and I think he was right. He said the Heat can't win this game, but the Celtics can lose this game. And I think that's exactly what happened in Game 7. We started the game, I think, 0 for 9 from 3. We were just taking stupid shots. Malcolm Brogdon should not have played. He looked terrible. He airballed his first 3. Missoula should have saw that and got him off the court. Rob Williams was thrown up during the game. Jalen Brown is a walking turnover. He had 8 turnovers. He wants to get paid Supermax, $300 million, 8 turnovers, Game 7. Jason Tatum twists his ankle. We should have known when he twists his ankle in the first play. Jason Tatum had 14 points. I don't think Jalen Brown had the 2 best players didn't show up in a Game 7 at home. No one played. It was a disaster, Sam, but I feel like that's what we've come to expect from this group.
Yeah, I think this team definitely took for granted what Miami was going to do going into this one. I think, all the momentum leading up to this game was definitely on our side. However, the Heat took advantage of that because they saw that we weren't really trying as much. So then they knew they were just going to put the pedal to the metal and just literally out-hustle us. And, every loose ball was definitely Miami's favor. It's
amazing it took us till Game 4 to get going. You think in the conference finals, we'd play with some urgency. It took us till Game 4. And then it's, that's why, you go down 3-0. You have no room for error, no room for mistakes. So then you have a clunker like this. Cost you the series. I mean, it's just so disappointing with this group, because they are by far the most talented team in the league, in my opinion. Denver's very good, too, in Milwaukee, but I think we're the best team in the league on paper. We're deep. We get the guys. I'm sick about hearing, too, they're young. It's their times now. Tatum, Brown, I think Brown's been to 5 conference finals. I think Tatum's been to 4. They went to the finals. The times now, and I'm sick of hearing excuses. They're front runners. They're frauds. and they're soft, and that's why they lost the series, because they are the more talented team. Miami's not a championship team. They're just tough-willed. You know, they got that dog in them. you know? And the Celtics, they don't. You know, they've won they've won a lot of big games, a lot of big series, but they can't close.
Yeah, I got to say, as Eddie House mentioned earlier,
Great player.
because he talked about the Celtics' performance
Love
after
Eddie.
this one, he said, this team has no heart.
Wow.
If you had to compare these two teams, you're looking at them on paper. The Celtics had the clear-cut advantage. They got Brown, they got Tatum, Rob Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Marcus Smart, like that 5 or 6 players that I just mentioned, sensational.
If you were to individually rank the top 10 players in the series, Boston might have 8 of them.
Yeah.
If you were to just rank them individually. But
Yep.
Miami plays as a team. They play smart. They play tough. And the Celtics play like they're on drugs. A lot of their guys, Rob Williams, Marcus Smart, those guys play like they're on drugs, some of the stuff they do.
I got to give it to Spoelstra, though.
Oh, Spo.
He makes the most out of the people that he's got because, there's a lot of excuses to go out there like, is it the team or whatnot? They don't have, the superstar talent. But, I mean, look at Jimmy Butler, I think, solidified himself as a bona fide superstar in this league just based on this playoff run.
He's him.
Because, look, he's got guys like Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, guys that were passed on by all the other teams in the league. They all went undrafted.
It's a good stat.
And he's utilizing the most out of these guys. I think on any other team, any other system, these guys are not going to do the same as they do for this team.
Well, listen, it's that Heat culture, man, and you got to give it to them. They've been in it every year, and like you said, with a group that on paper, shouldn't really be here, but they are because of how they play together.
So, best of luck to them, but they'd sure enough have another tough test ahead of them.
Well, Sam, funny you mentioned that. That's a great segue, Sam. We're going to talk about that series right now. The Heat are playing the Denver Nuggets. Sam, Denver swept LeBron and the Lakers. They've had 9 days off between their last game and when the finals tip off. Miami's going to have 2 days off. A lot of people are picking Denver in this matchup. Sam, I'll ask you, who do you like and who do you think? Do you think it's better for Denver getting that rest, or do you think it's better for Miami to be in a rhythm and go right into a series?
I think it's better for Denver to have that rest.
I would agree.
Because they got their series over with very quickly. They had enough time to watch enough footage of this Miami team in Miami, coming off 7 games again. Another long, drawn-out playoff series. All the players, are fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have much rest. And they're going up against a team that can simply outplay them from start to finish. Like, this Denver team is probably the most talented that they've faced so far. Jokic, he is a superstar. I don't think Bam's going to be able to guard him.
That's going to be a key matchup if Bam can maintain Jokic,
Then you got a guy like Jamal Murray that can easily throw up points in a hurry. Like you saw how he took over that Lakers series.
Mm-hmm.
He dropped a couple of big games, like 30-piece each. And then you got guys like Michael Porter Jr.
I know you love him.
He is the kind of guy that if he plays well this series, I think it's over for the Heat. Like, it could be a sweep or 5 games.
Well, the Denver is kind of like the Celtics in the fact they have a very deep team, and they have a star, Jokic, Tatum. The only difference between Celtics and the Nuggets is the Nuggets play like a team and not like a bunch of jackasses versus that's what the Celtics do. Listen, I think Miami's in for a tough test. Honestly, I probably have Denver in 5 or 6. I will say this though. I said the same thing. I thought the Bucks would beat Miami in 5 or 6. Thought the Celtics would beat Miami in 5 or 6. So I can't rule out Miami because they're going to give it 110% every game. Butler might steal them one. You know what I mean? So they're not going to let their foot off the gas. So I don't count them out, but I really do think Denver will win this series. I think the time is now for Jokic.
Definitely. I think if they're able to maintain home court advantage by winning those games at home, especially the first 2, I'd say this series gets wrapped up pretty quickly.
I will say it's a shame. The NBA must have been praying for Lakers Celtics, and they got Nuggets Heat, which is a shame for the NBA because if you're not like a real diehard hoops fan, you're probably not watching this series,
Yeah, it's not the most ideal matchup that we wanted. However, these two teams were in the bubble conference finals as well.
That's a good point, Sam.
So, we'll see what happens.
There you go. All right, let's dive in a little bit more to the Joker, Sam. We're both big fans of Jokic. I love Jokic. I think he's a great game. the last couple years he's really been dominating the league. He's won this year is runner-up for MVP. The 2 previous years, he won back-to-back MVPs. He's really been the best player in the world. Him, Giannis, maybe Embiid. Last couple of years. Now he has his team that was the one question. Jokic, great player, but his teams haven't done anything. The bubble, kind of whatever. Now he has his team in the finals. They've played very well all playoffs. Sam, if they get this done, where does Jokic rank all time for you? Hall of Fame, top 50, like top 5 centers? Like, where does Jokic rank for you all time?
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt.
Thank you.
I'd say if he does manage to get this done and bring home a title to Denver,
yep.
I'd say he's definitely in the top 50 of all players all time because there's players that are above him that have the accolades. However, they don't have a title. And I feel like a title, especially like bringing this team, because like they didn't really have a star player. Like they had a bunch of good players, but he has elevated this team to be like a contender for years to come. So I would definitely say that he would be a top 50 player of all time if he wins a ring.
Sam, I agree with that. I think if he got hit by a bus today, he's a Hall of Famer. If Nikola Jokic dropped dead tomorrow morning, I think he's in the Hall of Fame just because he's won 2 MVPs already. He's got his team in the finals. And, dude, I've never seen a center like him, dude, that can pass, really to play. He might be the best playmaker. I don't think it's an overstatement to say he's the best playmaking 5 of all time. I mean, what he does is insane. He's a triple-double machine. He hit 55er. He can score. He can he does it all on offensively. Defensively, to be desired. But on offense, I mean, he's unbelievable, dude. I put him top 50 because, I put him top 50 ever right now. And I think the way it's trending, I mean, he could be, I don't know if I'm going to say top 5 because you got Kareem, Russell, Wilt, Shaq, Hakeem. I mean, but by the end of it, I wouldn't be shocked if Jokic is top 10 center of all time, top 50 player. I mean, he's Hall of Fame. He's unbelievable, dude. I think him and Giannis are the 2 best players in the league. I would take him over Embiid 10 times out of 10. And if he wins this chip, he's going to prove him because that's the one. Embiid, I feel like he gives up. Playoffs, he doesn't show up. Jokic, this playoffs has shown up. I feel like this is the time for the Nuggets,
Definitely. I feel like going off of what you said, I feel like making a name for yourself, like being a superstar, what separates you from all the other players in the league is the ability to not only create shots for yourself, but for other people, elevating the play.
I know you're big on that. He makes people better.
And because of that, that's why he ranks over Embiid, in my opinion.
I agree. Before, like you said, dude, Denver Nuggets have never done anything. Mile High. I don't know, Sam, you know about the Mile High Club? All right, we'll get into that another show.
I'm kidding.
All right. We'll talk a little Lakers. LeBron, so they got swept by Denver. It was, I think Denver was just a better team. But after their last game, LeBron made some interesting comments. He said, I don't know about my future. We'll see what next year brings. He's never talked about retirement, really. A little bit he wants to play with his son, but never, really kind of like he did last time, which raised some eyebrows. What do you think is next for LeBron and the Lakers, Sam?
Is his contract up before I get into it?
I think he's eligible. I think he has a player option, an extension.
Okay. Well, then in that case, I'd say he's probably going to stay another year with the Lakers. I know that his end goal is he wants to play with Bronny once Bronny makes it to the league. And I feel like he'll play a year or 2 with Bronny and then call it quits. But as far as the Lakers go, I don't really know what to say. They're kind of like a poverty franchise.
Well, let me ask you. They have some Austin Reeves is a free agent. Raul Hachimura is a free agent. And D'Angelo Russell are free agents. What are you doing? You doing anything with those guys? Anyone you got to bring back? You let go? What do you think about any of those guys?
I like Russell.
Okay.
I'd say he's a good two-way mix.
Got benched during the playoffs, during the Denver series.
It happens.
Okay.
Sometimes you don't always play your best. In that stretch of games, he didn't really play his best.
Okay.
But also, they have coaching worries as well. I don't feel like they had the right guy.
You don't like Darvin Ham?
Yeah, not a big Darvin Ham guy. I think that's what...
You think he's the problem?
I think that's one of the reasons why this team failed, ultimately.
Darvin Ham?
He couldn't get the players motivated enough to play within themselves and play as a team.
You think that's on the coach, or do you think that's on Anthony Davis, who makes $50 million to show up in the playoffs?
It's both.
Okay.
It's the players don't have respect for the coach, so then what good can the coach do?
I would say that about the Celtics. I feel like the players have no respect for Missoula.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like they run the show.
I don't know if you've seen this, but a couple times I caught this during the broadcast.
You have like a keen eye, Sam. You know,
so when they call a timeout, and you know how they get into a huddle?
I do.
Instead of Mazzulla calling the shots,
yeah,
you see guys like Marcus Smart.
It's not good.
Calling the shots.
It's like the inmates running the
is
asylum.
The number one red flag that you look for.
A recipe for disaster.
That means there's disaster.
It's not good.
That's how great teams fail.
It's like a girl, you go on a date, she's chewing with her mouth open. You don't want any of it.
It's a power struggle, you know?
Tough. You hate to see it. As for the Lakers and LeBron, man, I'll just say quickly before we go on, we'll go back to Celtics, but I'll just say I think they got to bring back Austin Reeves if they can. He was great for them this year. Hachimura was good in the playoffs. I look around the league, see what you do in free agency, but if at the end of the day, I think you bring Russell back if you can get him on a decent contract. I wouldn't pay max for him because he's he shows up, doesn't show up. If you get him on a good deal, maybe you bring him back, you make another move. You ride with that group, but bleed green here. Let's go a little bit more, a little deeper into the Celtics. I'm a person who needs to point the finger, and I like to blame people. I say it's your fault. You're the reason, So who you pointing the finger at? Who is the biggest person to blame for what's happened with the Celtics this season? Get to point one and say it's your fault,
I would say it's got to be Jalen Brown.
Okay, let's hear it.
Now, the reason why I say that is because he is more worried about being in the shadow, playing that number 2 role. He is like more Robin. In it for himself instead of knowing what his role is. Jason Tatum, better player in my opinion. I feel like he's the number 1 option on this team.
Agree.
And, he knows his role. However, Jalen Brown, he's not satisfied as the number 2. That's why he checks out for certain games, especially like this series.
Okay.
And I don't see him staying long with the Celtics. I see him pursuing his options.
You think Jalen Brown is going to – well, Sam, so Jalen Brown made All-NBA second team this year, so that makes him eligible for the Supermax. Now, I have a picture right here. Under the Supermax deal, his first year, he would make $50 million. His second year, he'd make $54 million. Third year, $58 million. Fourth year, $62 million. And by the end of it, $66 million. So in all, he would make $290 million. Only the Celtics can offer him that contract. You think he's going to turn down that money?
I think he may if he's unhappy with this situation.
All right. Well, 11 players have been offered the Supermax. No one has ever turned it down. Does that? No?
I don't see him staying.
Okay. All right.
I really don't.
Well, I could see him. So if you sign the Supermax, I think you have to play at least 1 year under it with the team. So I could see him maybe signing it, playing a year or two under it, then he gets fed up and requests a trade. I could see that happening. But he has 1 year left on his current deal, and then he'd have to play 1 year under the Supermax. Well, we would have him for at least 2 years if he did sign that. And do you want him back? Let me ask you as a fan. Put on your GM hat, Sam. Do you want Jalen Brown back?
I don't know. If he's not invested with this team, I don't want him personally. I'll find somebody else to find that role, whether that's drafting somebody or signing somebody that would fit the mold better to pair with Tatum. Just because I feel like these two kind of butt heads with the ball. They're always asking for the ball during
They don't play off
time.
each other. You like Harden and Embiid play off each other.
They don't.
Murray and Jokic, it's ISO with both of them.
It's like oil and vinegar. It doesn't really go well together.
Suit yourself,
So,
no, Sam, I agree with that. That was actually a really good point. A lot of the star duos in the league play off each other. Embiid, Harden, Jokic, Murray. You know what I mean? They don't. It's ISO ball. They're both individually great players. They don't play off each other at all.
Well, look at this. Luka and the Mavs, when they brought in Kyrie Irving.
They don't play off each other.
Same situation, They don't really feed off each other, and they're just always demanding for the ball, and that's why they struggled down the stretch.
Also, Kyrie's an asshole too. Kind of like these guys. But Jalen Brown, I bring him. You got to bring him back, in my opinion, because as much as they've choked, they're right there every year, and I think you just got to hope they break through because you're not going to find. I don't think you're going to find or be able to bring in anyone better than Jalen Brown. You know what I mean? Because they're done with their high draft picks. And I don't know if there's a guy out there that they can bring in that would be better than Jalen Brown, give him a better chance to win. So that's why I would bring him back and just hope they break through 1 year, Now,
let me ask you this, Matt.
Oh, okay.
So going back, when there was trade rumors flying around, when Jalen Brown and Marcus Smart were being thrown into package for Durant, would you take that deal?
Right now?
Right now.
No, because Kevin Durant, I think he's 35. He's always hurt. And he's kind of a loser himself. These guys are like losers, but he's kind of one too. He had to go to a 73-win team to get a ring. Jalen Brown's 26, Durant's 35. I mean, that's a 9-year difference. You get years with Brown. Durant, who knows? I mean, he could break down at any second. So I would not do that deal. No.
Well, my apologies. I meant to rephrase it. I meant going back.
Don't worry. We'll cut it. We'll cut it.
Going back to when that trade rumors were flying, like this was like a couple years back.
Sure.
Would you consider taking that deal now that you know what happens?
The only way I would have done that is if you knew Jalen Brown was leaving. Like if Jalen Brown made it clear to the Celtics organization, I don't want to be here, then you make that deal. So at least you get something in value in return. But now that he is the Supermax and Durant's old, the years, I don't do that because you have more years with Jalen. So that's my reasoning.
Okay.
All right. Before we close here, we have a question from a fan. Very arrogant fan. It's Alex Vassapoli, a frequent, we ask a lot of questions, kind of a dick, but here we go. Hello from Switzerland. It's the number one Boston sports hater, Alex Vassapoli. 1, can you go on a rant about how poorly Jason Tatum played? All right. And 2, do you think Jason Tatum has been spending too much time with Deuce and not focusing on basketball? Listen, normally our fans are great. We get a lot of great questions, a lot of great fans. This guy's an asshole. This guy, I don't like this fan at all. Frankly, he's in Switzerland right now. I wouldn't be, upset if he never came back. So don't watch Alex. Fucking asshole. How poorly Jason Tatum played? Yeah, he sucked last night, man. I mean, he was terrible. I could have gave you 14 points. I mean, what a no-show. I mean, yeah, he twisted his ankle in the first play. It was bad luck. But you know what, dude? Isaiah Thomas, sack up, shoot him up at halftime, give him whatever drugs he wants, numb the pain. I'm sorry. Game 7, you do what you got to do. 14 points, dude, in a Game 7. He has these great games, but then he has times he doesn't show up, and a lot of times his shot selection is terrible. He takes these awful threes. I don't know, Sam. What do you think about how Tatum's played? Do you give him the excuse with the ankle, or what do you think?
I think it just showed he doesn't really care too much, to be honest with you.
I think he cares. I think he's just an idiot.
Well, listen, if you're taking a step-back 3 when you don't have to, instead of taking the ball to the cup, where in Game 6 you were more successful doing that, why do you go away from that game plan? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, maybe he's spending, we'll go to question 2, maybe he's spending too much time with his son Deuce and not focusing on basketball. What do you think? I mean, listen, I don't want to point fingers, but, I saw in a Snapchat story one day after a game, or one night before a big playoff game, he was up watching a movie with his son Deuce. What do you get your 8 hours? What are you doing watching movies with your son? Send them to the maid, whatever, mom. You get a playoff game. Get your sleep, lock in, let's go. You think Kobe's doing that? No. Kobe's locked in. Locks on the door, window shut, don't bother me,
In bed by 9.
Exactly. So that's my little rant about Tatum. And Sam, that's all we got. Thank you for joining me today. It's a pleasure as always. You make my day and everyone else's day better.
Thanks for having me again, Matt.
No problem. All right, that's all we got. Thanks for sticking around. Another episode of Sideline NBA Edition. We're back every Wednesday at noon for all our latest episodes. This channel is completely viewer-supported, so please be sure, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, leave your thoughts down below. We'll be back next week. All right.